It's about as innocent a thing as anyone can do, to go and grab a cup of coffee before the working day has fully started. Decent, innocent people who got caught up in the sick fantasy of a deeply disturbed individual.
There are many facets of terrorism that should frighten us. The pocket nuke, the coordinated band of fanatics, those who plot for years before delivering a blow that kills thousands. But the one both we and every other nation on earth cannot seem to get a solid handle on is what they call the lone wolf. And Australia demands we find some answers quickly. He is a noted national security expert and political analyst, consultant to government agencies, obviously someone who gets under the skin of enemies, as the Muslim Brotherhood once called him delusional. Ryan Mauro is in the house. Ryan, thanks so much for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Ryan, we hear those words lone wolf in what happened in Sydney. However, let's stop for a moment. How do we know that this was a lone wolf? What is the criteria that we're using here? And is it possible that in a situation like this, we jump too quickly to use that phrase?
Well, let's ask ourselves what a lone wolf really is. I mean, the authorities are going through his communications. They're going to find out who he was talking to, whether the arrest of another Islamic State supporter in the morning triggered this, that this guy may have been in communication with. But this term of lone wolf, I think, is misleading. And one of the points I've been making at ClarionProject.org, where I work, is that it's misleading because you're never really alone. This is an ideology that's international in scope. You can go on the internet, communicate with people around the world, read their writings. So it's not really someone isolated in a basement that just becomes radical. There is a social element in every single case of this.
But when we look at the phrase lone wolf, and again, let's work off what you just said here. This is an individual like so many others who apparently have been involved in chat rooms, have been involved on the internet. There was some sort of communications. But not only that, this is somebody who actually watches what happens on the net, this wonderfully dark media presence that ISIS has out there, that incites people, that enrages them, that gets them involved. Is that still a lone wolf? Because in a sense, are they not being conditioned, if you will, brainwashed by others? It's not as if they just came up with it out of the blue.
Right, and that's really my point, is because if we say it's a lone wolf, what the average person's going to assume is, okay, well, this was just a crazy person, and you can't do anything about the inevitable crazy person that engages in criminal activity. Whereas I view this as an ideological war. And this debate, which is really false, about whether this qualifies as an ISIS attack or not, is misleading also because they don't have membership cards. This is an ideological movement. If you believe in the cause, you fight for the cause, then you're a member. We wouldn't be having this argument about the communists during World War II, or about the communists during the Cold War, or about the Nazis during World War II. If you sympathize with that movement and you contribute to it, even on your own accord, then you're a member of the enemy forces.
Ryan, then let's take the gloves off here. In this ideological war, how does America then try to find these individuals? What are we missing in not being able to identify them? And again, I'm saying gloves off here. What is the real thing that we need to do? Get down to it.
Honestly, it's going to have to come down to going after the Islamist ideology, not going after Islam as a whole or Muslims as a whole. Going after the Islamist ideology.
So how do you separate the two? How do you separate those two then?
Sure. Well, the majority of Muslims don't believe in theocracy. They don't want to combine mosque and state. If you are a supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood or a supporter of Hamas, even if it's protected under free speech, then you get put on a watch list. You get monitored. We have to start focusing on that instead of just these individual tactics of violent extremism, as it's called, because Sheikh Haroun paraded as a non-violent guy. He said, I support terrorists, I believe in their cause, but my jihad is the jihad of the pen. And most people said, okay, well, that means that he's non-violent. No, he's just saying at that moment, he's just writing letters. He's not condemning violence or saying he won't become violent. He's just using deceptive language, taking advantage of this undue focus just on the act and not the ideology that leads to the act.
20 seconds, though, and then we'll take a break. But are we not talking about something here in identifying these people that will slap at civil liberties almost every single instance?
Well, I would argue that we don't have to prosecute people for free speech. If they want to go out there and say, I support Hamas, for example, then allow them to do that, because from an intelligence perspective, I want them to run their mouths. That's how we figure out who we need to watch, who they're talking to, and there's more benefits from that than prosecuting them for something like that.
All right, stand by. Ryan Mauro returns after a short break. We'll tackle the brutal and horrible slaughter in Pakistan and what lessons we have to take from that attack as well. And at 51 minutes after the hour, the water cooler dispenses the news we cannot stop talking about. And some students are really going to come to the water cooler on this one. It's all coming up on MidPoint.